Hello class, we're in a new module. We're in module 5, I believe. Let's go to the top of our class. I hope my microphone works in this new laptop that I have. We are in module 5. This was what you did last week, and we're starting a new one. This project that I have assigned to you is due, not that one, this is module 6. It is due by Wednesday. But let's look at functions. We're going into functions, and you can open up your CPDF book. It has a lot of examples, but I have some examples right here. A function is just an easy way to break up large tasks. And in our case, you're going to build a calculator. You're going to have a function that adds two numbers and a function that subtracts two numbers, divides and multiplies two numbers. So 4 separate functions that will return 4 separate answers. We'll have 4 separate declarations, which are called function prototypes. 4 definitions, which are your 4 functions you're going to build under main. And 4 function calls. In your main, call the add two numbers function. It returns an answer, and then you print the answer out. Or you call actually, you're going to just call each one after you get two numbers from the user. So functions are very important in writing code. It provides a way to reuse the code, which reduces the amount of code you have to write. And it makes it easy to find mistakes, to modify it, and maintain the code. I mean, if you may have to upgrade it when things change. Sometimes an operating system changes or other laws are enacted, and we have to go back and change the code. It also makes it possible for you to build and maintain large-scale software systems. I mean, you don't want to be overwhelmed by all the complexity if you make smaller. Divide and conquer is the message that we use and we say for using functions. We divide and conquer. We can break it up into smaller pieces, and then we can conquer the big program. All right, 3 parts of a function. Number one, function prototypes. The function prototype is just a fancy way of saying this is the area where we're going to declare the function we're going to use. You must declare the function in C programming language before you can use it. So at the top of the code, you'll be declaring your function prototype. This is a function prototype. It's saying, hey, below, I've got a function called add two nums, and it's going to pass two integers. It's of integer type. And then I build it down here below main. See, main, we always have to have a main in C. You know that. And then below main, I'm going to write the definition of the function down here. This is where we call add two numbers function, passing it two values, and then it returns an answer. So in this line, we declare total, we add two numbers together, store it in total, return the total. So when add two numbers is called, passing it the two numbers we already hard-coded here, you can store it in the answer, and then we just print out the answer. You're going to be writing code that will do adding, subtracting, dividing, and multiplying. So this is just 2 lines of code to take care of the adding. You're going to have 2 lines, one to call the subtraction function and then one to show the answer, then 2 lines for division and 2 lines for multiplication. To call it, you say we could have add answer. I'll show you some more code in just a minute. So the function definition is the actual code written below main. There's main, ending brace. So you start your own name of your function and you have 2 braces. Then we call it from the main, and I showed you an example right there. Seems like I'm repeating myself. So functions are very important and we need to use them. Most programming languages use functions, and you get into a real working environment, you're going to have to use functions. Let's go on to the actual code assignment first. Your assignment right here is 4 math functions all called from main. You're going to write one program that calls 4 different functions. Create the add 2 numbers, subtract 2 numbers, multiply 2 numbers, divide 2 numbers. Don't forget the function prototypes above main, and then the actual definitions go below main. You're going to declare 2 numbers for input, and here is an example. I wrote this code in Repellent. You can open up Repellent, use this code. I also attached the code here, so when you click on it, you can open it in Notepad, cut and paste, and run this and make sure it works for you. These red comments will not be in your code, but I made the same comments that I put in red so that you can see this is where your prototype goes. This is where your definition of the function that's written, you have to define it and you have to write it, and then we'll use it in the code. We'll call it. And add 2 numbers is being called here. It's going to pass 2 arguments into this function, and then it returns an answer, and this code here returns that, and it stores it in add answer. That's my add answer. So I print out the addition answer is, and you know how to do print statements. So you're going to write 3 more, subtract answer, and then print out the answer. And it will call the subtract answer program. You get the function that you're going to write below here. I'm going to go to Repellent and show you an example of how to write another function. Here's Repellent. Remember, I have, this is the title. I have 2 numbers, 2 integers, but I am changing the data type of the answer to a float. And this should be a float down here as well. Let me see if I can type it in here. So, oh, I can't type. There's float, and then I got to change the function. Okay, here's the prototype at the top. Let me make this a little bit larger. Okay, the function prototype for adding 2 numbers is right here, and it's a float type. We'll add the other ones here. My main welcomes the user, declares 2 integers, and declares 1 output answer, the add output. We're going to ask the user to enter the first number, and we store it in the variable called num1. That's our syntax for storing our values in our variables. And we got the second number. Then down in here, I call add 2 numbers, and it returns a value, and it comes down in here and reads each line of code. It executes every line, and when it's finished, it returns the answer. And then the answer is in here, and then it gets stored in add answer. Then I print out the addition answer is. I will run it. 2 numbers, there you go. Excuse me. All right, so now let's write the subtraction one. I know it's going to be in the same shape as this one, so I'm just going to copy this prototype, which is the declaration. I'm going to declare another function as a float type, but I'm going to call it subtract, sub. So it's going to subtract 2 numbers, and it's going to pass 2 integers. We don't have to specify the names of the variable that's being passed. We just have to say, this is a function called sub2 numbers, and it's going to pass 2 integers. So I can copy this all the way up to the semicolon and build my function down here. And remember, they all have braces, so I'll put braces in it. So what's this subtraction function going to do? It's going to do the same thing as the add function, except for we're going to subtract. So I can copy this code because all the variables in here are local to sub two numbers, especially the total. I can use total over and over because it's only known to this one. And now it's going to be, why are there squiggly lines? Because I have to actually tell the program which variables, and order matters in a function. If I put num2 here and num1 there, and when I call it and it passes 2 and 1 and it's expecting 1 and 2, it's going to switch the numbers on me. So you have to be very careful about that. So this is going to do the same thing. How easy is that? I'm just going to subtract it instead of add it. You can do the multiply and divide ones. I'm missing one more thing. I did a prototype up here before above main. I did the actual definition of the function here. And now I've got to call it. And then I've got to display the answer. So I'm just going to use these two lines of code and call sub two numbers. And I want to put it in another variable called sub answer. So I don't have sub answer declared, but I can declare it right here. Just change it to sub. C doesn't care about lines and spaces or indentations like Python, but we should do it just to be neat. All right, so we're already going to get the two numbers. It's going to call the add function. It's going to add them. And now it's going to call the subtract function, passing it two numbers, and then putting the answer out. That says the addition answer. We'll say subtraction. And sub answer, because that's that's the variable I stored it in after I called the sub function. Sub function is being called from here. It's passing it num1 and num2 that we got from the user at the beginning of the code. It added them. Now it's going to go down here and subtract the two numbers. I'll do a big number so you can see a negative. The addition answer and the subtraction answer. It works. Now what do you have to do? You have to add two more function definitions: multiply, divide, two lines of code to call it and to display it, and two function prototypes. It's like basically you have to declare the mults two numbers and the divide two numbers right up here. Call the code here, build the code down here. So you have two more functions to build. Good luck.